Hi, good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for coming in the rain through the dreadful weather out there for a talk about the exciting stormy weather in the oil and coal markets. My name is Kevin Book. I'm a senior associate here at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, although many of you know me also in my capacity as head of research at ClearView Energy Partners. I'm happy to welcome you on behalf of Sarah Ladislaw, the head of the Energy and National Security Program, and very, very pleased to welcome Keisuke Sadamori from the International Energy Agency to talk about the medium-term oil market report. Nothing could be braver right now than making a medium-term prediction about the oil market. This is an act of analytical courage without parallel. And one that I think all of us have come to appreciate from the IEA, not just with the monthly oil market report, but also increasingly with these longer views, and also the medium-term coal market report. It is not, after all, just the oil market, which is experiencing overcapacity right now and creating a great deal of uncertainty, but also that heavier, denser hydrocarbon that continues to fuel generation for heat and light in so much of the world. So in a moment, I'm going to introduce our speaker. He is then going to make a presentation. He's going to go through both the medium-term oil market report and also the medium-term coal market report. And then we'll go to Q&A, and to all of our viewers on the webcast, thank you for joining us as well. So Keisuke Sadamori is Director of the Office of Energy Markets and Security at the International Energy Agency, where he's been since October 2012. He was previously the Deputy Director General for Policy Coordination at the Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry in Japan. He's been, for a number of years, involved with the IEA, and he's also served in the cabinet of the Prime Minister of Japan, and he's worked on many, many important projects, including those in conjunction with the Fukushima Daiichi accident in 2011. And so he is now going to give us the privilege of a rollout of the medium-term oil market report and also a view of the medium-term coal market report. Mr. Sadamori?
Thank you very much, Kevin, for the very nice introduction. My name is Keisuke Sadamori. I'm the Director of the Energy Markets and Security at the International Energy Agency. And I just came from Houston yesterday. I was at the CERA Week, and our Executive Director, Dr. Fatih Birol, launched this medium-term oil market report 2016. And I fully agree with Kevin that this is really a kind of a brave act of presenting the medium-term oil market outlook in this very difficult situation. But I'm sure that my staff members were able to live up to the kind of the expectation, and I think I should be able to present this with certain level of confidence to the outside. And also, so my original plan was to present this the medium-term oil market report immediately after the global launch, but at the same time, so that was my kind of the original plan. But in doing that, I was assuming, based on the discussions that I was having with my staff members, so my staff members, the people like Laszlo Varro, who is responsible for the gas, coal, and power, now the chief economist at the IEA, would be coming to Washington and present the medium-term coal market report. It's becoming almost like a kind of a tradition of the IEA. But then I did find out immediately before departing for the mission that it's actually not done. So therefore, I kind of, at the very final moment, decided to add this very brief part of this medium-term coal market report as well. And actually, those two have several kind of common implications and issues, which is that both, I mean, it's not only about the oil and coal, but all the fossil fuel prices at the very the kind of bottom of the downward cycle, and which would surely impact our transition to the kind of a low-carbon economy. May not block it, but they obviously would slow down. And also, one common element is coming from the kind of a slowing down and the rebalancing of the Chinese economy. So therefore, I think it could be a good idea to present those two products at the same time. So, but nonetheless, this is my first effort, so let me try and see how it works. I hope it can go well. So before coming into this medium-term, the oil market report, let me briefly review what's happening right now on the very short-term the market basis. So oil demand, it was rather strong growth. We saw strong growth of the oil demand actually last year, 2015. Annually, it was a 1.6 million barrel per day of growth. And in particular, in the second and third quarter, we saw very strong growth. The third quarter recorded 2.2 million barrel per day of growth, which was very high in terms of the recent years. And that was mostly driven by the very strong gasoline demand. Actually, among the 5 barrels the additionally demanded in that period, 2 barrels were purely gasoline. So, we saw very strong demand growth in gasoline in the United States as well as in China. But we saw some demand easing back in the fourth quarter, probably due to the warm weather. And so we expect that the demand growth will come down to the average normal speed. So that's the demand. Supply, in terms of the non-OPEC production, we have seen kind of the non-OPEC supply gradually coming down, in particular the U.S. light tight oil, which already recorded from the middle of last year, kind of a series of month-on-month declines. But we finally forecasted that this year we'll see a kind of a year-on-year decline in 2016. OPEC, again, very high level of production, which started around the spring of last year, 2015. And they saw the increase of production quite substantial level, more than 10 million barrels per day. And Iraq is also hitting kind of record levels. And so that's in anticipation of Iran coming back to the market. So we see strong growth from the OPEC and resilience in non-OPEC production. Non-OPEC production resilience is also found in Russian production, which actually we got it wrong probably in the 2015 medium-term oil market report. The expected substantial decline in Russian production, but actually they recorded post-Soviet high in 2015, probably supported by the depreciated ruble and also their change in the tax systems, which supported the industries. So all in all, this strong the supply picture, together with the kind of a normal the oil demand growth, still leading to the inventory build continuing as we speak. So that's a kind of a fundamental, the very short-term the picture of what's happening in the market. Now let me move on to the. No, I'm sorry, I got it wrong.
No, that's fine.
This one?
Just the arrow.
Maybe, but next. Thank you. So I should not use this. Thank you. Thanks. Going forward in the medium term, the point is that demand growth will continue to see a solid growth at the normal average pace of 1.2 million barrels per day through 2021. And on the other hand, production growth that will be slashed as we saw the investment the cuts. We are seeing the upstream spending cuts 2 years in a row, which is the first time in the past 30 years. And in terms of the trade, we have been showing the pictures in the same kind of a world map that center of gravity is shifting east. And we continue to further see the picture again in the later slide. And of course, that will come with the high level of uncertainties. First of all, the OPEC production policies, there's quite active the media reports going around with respect to what could be the kind of OPEC the production policies in the future. And in terms of the non-OPEC, it depends. I mean, we may see kind of a stronger resilience than expected, but at the same time, this very drastic upstream cuts may lead to further decline. So that's also a very uncertain factor. World economy, yes, we are seeing the very uncertain outlook for the emerging economies in particular. the India may be the only countries who is still growing strong, and so China and other parts. And also, what's notable is that not only oil, but also the other fossil fuels commodities. So those countries who has depended on the export revenues out of those commodities, they're having a real hard time. And therefore, that would also kind of impact the economic growth, and which would lead to the kind of a slower demand growth for the oil. And the efficiencies, this is something that IEA has promoted as efficiency as the hidden fuel. And in fact, actually, when we see the IEA structure, we recently recreated the energy efficiency division inside the IEA, and we decided to put the efficiency division in the energy markets and security, my directorate, which shows that the IEA is serious about the efficiency as a real hidden fuel. So yes, but of course, when we talk about the efficiencies, we saw in the last December, in the Paris Agreement, we saw a lot of more than 190 countries submitting the INDCs, and the vast majority of those countries have efficiency policy as a kind of a central piece of this, the possible contribution for the climate change. But at the same time, we actually need to see the real robust efficiency gains if we are to achieve the real kind of a low carbon transition. First, let me start with the oil demand. And so we'll see the kind of the stable but slower growth going forward. In the 2009 to the 2015, we saw the kind of a 1.7% annual growth all around the world. But that will slow down to the kind of a more normal speed of 1.2% per year. Toward the 2016 to 2021. And if we look at the kind of a regional breakdowns, so Europeans, they have already on the kind of a path to the kind of a decreased demand, and we will continue to do so. With this, they are very mature, and also the efficiency gains. And so the vast majority of demand is coming from the Asia, first of all, China, India, and the ASEAN countries, as well as the Middle East, who is kind of leading the demand growth in the recent years. So while if we look at the Americas, probably they will be the countries, and also the FSU, who will be hit by this very low the fossil fuel and commodity prices, and which will lead to the kind of a decreased revenues for their countries. So that's very uncertain, the kind of a demand outlook, but we assume that there will be somewhat overall stable supply, which is somewhat capped by the efficiency gains, not very strong, but so that will be the outlook on the kind of a demand side. And also, we finally start to see, we have been seeing in this the low oil price situation that many countries have they undertaken the kind of a review and reduction of the fossil fuel subsidies. It started with the oil, the importing countries in Asia, like Indonesia, Thailand, the India. But we're finally seeing that the oil exporting countries are finally started to undertake this the fossil fuel subsidy reduction. This is a very welcome news, as IEA has been running campaign against the fossil fuel subsidies in the world energy outlooks. But of course, that would have a certain impact on the demand growth. In terms of countries, of course, it's China, and we are hearing about the slowing down of the Chinese economy. So we expect that economic growth will be somewhat, growth will be reduced substantially. We depend upon the kind of macroeconomic, the data with the IMF. And so we'll see the China demand growth will slow down to something like 3.4%. In the coming years, compared with 6% in the past 6 years, 2009 to 15. And it's not only about the overall size of the demand growth, but also we need to take a look at the kind of a product mix in the demand growth. And actually, this is the comment to the coal market report that I'm going to present, but this shows that what is called the rebalancing of the Chinese economy is going on, and will further go on, because the green part is gas, oil, diesel, which is a fundamental kind of industrial fuels, and we do not see the kind of a robust growth in the coming years, and on the other hand, the motor gasolines, and as well as the kind of jet and kerosene. So those are the ones who will kind of see the increase. So this shows that we assume that there will be some the basic the structural the rebalancing from the investment, export, heavy manufacturing-led growth to the consumption service the economy. So that's what we'll be seeing, and I'll be coming back to this China rebalancing in the coal market report later. So that's about China. On the other hand, the India, this chart was originally supposed to show the kind of a product the breakdown, but in case of India, we will continue to see the very strong growth. So it will continue to grow by more than 7% moving forward. And in case of India, it'll be both for the gasoline demand as well as diesel. And we'll see the model assumes about 10% per year of increase in the Indian gasoline fleet number of cars. So that would offset the vehicle efficiency gains and will continue to increase. And with India, eliminating the subsidies to the kind of a diesel fuels, so so we assume that gasoline, the demand growth would be larger than the diesel demand growth. So, and also the Indians are also trying hard to improve the efficiency of the cars. So they have put in place the efficiency standards regulations, and their plan is to enhance that toward the future, but at the same time, they don't have any efficiency regulations on the trucks. So in those sectors, we'll be seeing more demand growth in the Indian transport sector. So that's the picture on the demand. Next is the supply, and we have seen the rather drastic spending upstream spending cuts in the 2015. It was we estimate that was 24% compared with last year, and that would be 70%. We expect that to be 70% in 2016, and this could be steeper if the current price levels would continue. And if we see that, it's quite obvious that the dark blue at the bottom, and that's North America. And it's quite obvious that the spending cuts in North America is the kind of steepest among the older region. North America, US and Canada both, the accounts for the 60% of the total upstream spending cuts in 2015. And in 2016, this year, they're expected to account for about half. So we are seeing the kind of a steepest decline in the dark blue at the bottom. So this is the picture of what on the upstream. And so this spending cuts in 2 years in a row. This is something happened for the first time in the past 30 years. So this is rather significant, serious, the spending cuts. So this will lead to this the future supply growth. Going forward, we expect that the growth of the supply will slow down to about 4 million barrels per day. And that's compared with the 11 million barrels per day in the last 6 years, 2009 to 15. And among this 11 millions per day of growth in the past, the United States contributed the 5.5. So even though the entire size of the U.S. supply may be something like a kind of a 10% of the global supply. But in terms of the incremental, the growth, U.S. actually was almost half of the global growth. And so that's the picture that we are seeing. I mean, so we'll see substantial kind of a slowdown. And it's quite obvious in the 2014 that in the recent years, it was dominantly the non-OPEC who was leading the supply growth. But moving forward, it'll be also the non-OPEC who will be affected by this very low oil price situation. So let me focus a little bit on the U.S. light tight oil. So U.S. light tight oil has been the largest contributor in the recent years. It's amazing that in the 2010, it's almost started less than 1 million. Then they ramped up to more than 4. In 2015, it was like 4.3 million barrels per day. But at the same time, it will show the kind of a steepest declines moving forward in 2016 and 2017. And so we have seen a kind of a month-on-month decline since the second half of last year, but finally we expect that U.S. light tight oil, the production will decrease by 600 KBD, 1,000 barrels per day in 2016, and the additional 200 KBD in the 2017. But so that's the first half of this the forecast period. But in the second half, so we'll see in the 2016 we will continue to see the building inventory, and we expect that in the 2017 market will reach to the balance, and then we'll see the kind of a gradual recovery. And then we see fairly kind of a solid, robust recovery in the light tight oil sector, and it will further grow to the 5 million barrels per day. So this is the kind of the basic base case, the outlook that we have for the light tight oil. And we all know that the Bakken and Eagle Ford, those were the kind of the regions that led the light tight oil growth in the past. And moving forward, we'll see that the West Texas will show a very strong contribution in the years ahead. So that's what we expect for the U.S. light tight oil sector. And of course, it's not only the United States when we talk about the non-OPEC the supply. So going forward, we expect about 4 million barrels per day of growth, and based on the story that I presented, so at the end of the day, it's again the United States who has the kind of largest contribution to the growth in the coming years. We expect about 1.3 million barrels per day of the growth from the U.S., the entire U.S., and that's about 1/3 of the additional the supply going forward. And that'll be followed by Brazil and Canada, both contributing about 800 KBD in the coming years. And so that's basically supported by the large-scale investment made in the kind of a high oil price period. And so that would continue to lead the growth. And but of course, right now, it's not only the U.S. light tight oil sector who is suffering from this very low price, low revenue situation. So the lower price lasts longer than the production from Brazil and Canada. They'll have to face very the steep the uphill battle in the coming years. And the other side of the equation is the countries with the possibly declining the production levels, and we have put Russia at the right end of this chart. And even though Russia kind of they recorded a very high level of production, but with the depleting oil fields and the Western sanctions on the technologies, that would work against the Russians in the longer term, and we expect to see gradual decline of Russian the supply capacity toward the end of this focus period.
They're apparently clapping for that.
Very well. Thanks. Again, and of course it's not only Russia, but the lack of new investment with this current situation will take its toll in other producing countries like China, Mexico, or Colombia, which will see somewhat kind of around 200,000 barrels per day of decline in the coming years. So all in all, non-OPEC countries' supply will be seriously affected with this the low price situation. So that's the kind of the picture about the non-OPEC. What about the OPEC? So I have to tell you that this is a bit the difficult to understand, because the light blue in the past until the 2016, that's about, as written here, this is actual production. So this is not about the capacity, and we all know well that Iran is not producing at the maximum the capacity levels. In terms of the pure capacity, we expect that Iranian already has something like a 3.6 million barrel per day of the capacity, but they're not they're producing a lot less than that. Currently, they're staying at kind of a less than the 3 million barrel per day, and going forward, we basically discussed the capacities moving forward, and in this base case scenario, so we expect that the Iranian production capacity will lead to less than 4 million barrels per day, something like a 3.94 million barrels per day. So that's our base case scenario. So in terms of the production, we will see something like 1 million barrels per day of growth in this the 5 or 6 year period instead of 1 year. And on the very short term, our analysts' forecast is that the Iranians should be able to ramp up the production by 300 the KBD toward the end of the first quarter in the coming the few months. But it will take a longer time to actually ramp up the capacity. And of course, we all know well that this story is full of uncertainties, because it depends. And so we also, in our market report, we also include the kind of the low case scenario and high case scenario. And the low case scenario assumes what is called the snapback, the sanctions they're applying, and also the Western technology and money not flowing well into this the uranium capacity. If that happens, we'll see a lot more modest growth in terms of the capacity. While if it does not happen, I mean, so sanctions does not happen, and the Western countries are kind of pouring more money and the technologies into this area, then we may see the higher capacity growth. And in that respect, we were expecting the Iranian contractual conferences in London this week. And I was actually committed to the resources to send our experts there. But that was the kind of delayed or canceled due to the very strange visa reason. So this tells how uncertain the outcome would be. And but fortunately, so I didn't have to, my director didn't have to pay to actually to dispatch one of my experts in that meeting. So that was really helpful in terms of the budget reasons. And but overall, we see, in terms of the capacity, we see rather modest growth in the OPEC, the capacity growth, and we expect something like less than 1 million, about 800 KBD of growth in the overall OPEC capacity. And so the leaders will be Iran. In terms of the capacity, it will be something like a bit more than 300 KBD. And also Iraq. Iraq recorded the kind of the all-time high in last year, as well as I heard that even in January, they seem to have achieved the kind of the record high of more than 4.3 million barrel per day of production. But on the other hand, going forward, they're already suffering from the lower level of revenues, as well as the kind of very serious geopolitical situation with the ISIS. So that would somewhat constrain the Iraq production, the capacity growth in the future. So we expect less than 300 KBD of growth for the Iraq production capacity, as well as the UAE would be the country to kind of contribute to the growth with less than 300 KBD. So that's the kind of the fundamental picture of the OPEC the production. Now, Middle East. So this is the picture that I've been showing in the past 3 years about this the growth, and every time I use this, the lines on the right-hand side becomes thicker, while left-hand side becomes thinner, and this is actually happening. So the Western Hemisphere, that's they are almost achieving like a kind of a self-sufficiency. So we have not seen much of the active trade over the Atlantic, while the export, especially the export from the Middle East to the Asian countries, that's actually increasing more and more, because China, India, or the ASEAN countries, they are the ones who's increasing the demand. And actually, one of the fundamental major message from the World Energy Outlook 2015 we released last November was what is called the low oil case scenario. And it actually assumes $50 per barrel of price levels continuing on to the in the 2020s. Then what will happen? So that was the basic the assumption, and the conclusion was that we'll have to see a lot more the higher dependence on the Middle East resources, which is facing a very serious geopolitical situation. So, and also we may kind of have to face kind of a further steeper price upswing. So, so the fundamental message is that be careful what we wish for, because the low price may seem to benefit the importing countries, but in the longer term, in terms of the energy security implications, it may not be the case. And what's happening right now is that we are seeing a lot lower price levels, even compared with that assumption. And so we are already starting to see that the Middle Eastern countries, the increasing its presence in the global crude trade, which is that Middle East countries have already the more than 50% of share in this the inter-regional crude exports, but we expect that the share would further increase by 3% to 54% of the inter-regional crude trade. So that means that we'll be starting to see a lot more dependence, in particular from the kind of a Middle East to China, India, other Asian regions. So this is what we are already kind of starting to see in terms of the crude trade. And also, it may not be only about the crude trade, because we are already seeing the fairly robust the investment in the refining sector. And so we see two regions who will continue to invest in this refining capacity. One is the countries like China and the Asian countries who would like to enhance the refining capacity in closer to the consumption points, while the Middle Eastern countries, they would like to have the refining capacity closer to the wellheads, because they would like to capture more of the value added in the market. And so we will probably see not only the crude exports, but also the kind of a long-haul product trade in the coming years. So the balance is like this. And so in the dark blue part is our base case, the forecast scenario. So we will continue to see the inventory builds in 2016, but in the 2017 we'll come to the kind of a balance, and then the price will kind of swing upwards, gradually recover, and during those times there will be the stable stock draw in 2018 to the 2021, and the market will come to the balance, and we see the kind of a recovery of the prices probably toward the around the $80 level in the 2021. We don't mean to the forecast prices. That's something that we avoid. We don't do that. But in terms of the working assumptions, we have put in place the kind of the assumptions. By the way, that is kind of the assumption consistent with the world energy outlook of last year. So that's the kind of a base case scenario, but of course, it depends. And the light blue is which one? So that's a high supply case. So I don't know. I mean, producers may hang on for a while and continue to the kind of the fight against the and continue to produce more and avoid the kind of major shut-ins of the capacities, which is possible. And if that happens, then we'll see a kind of the market rebalancing at a later stage. So that's also the possible. While on the other hand, there may be some the discussions that the current prices would actually affect the production capacity a lot more. And if that were the case, we'll see the kind of the earlier the market rebalancing the happening in the markets. But our basic the scenario is that we'll see this kind of the gradual recovery and the rebalancing of the market. So that's conclusions. So global oil supply growth is plunging, but Iran will lead the OPEC gains going forward. And U.S. production will decrease, responding to the price signals, but then will recover in the medium term toward the 2021. And of course, we are seeing the improvement in efficiencies, but at the same time, we're seeing a lot of the new cars into the market in countries like China, India, or the ASEAN countries in or the Middle East. So we will continue to see the solid growth in demand, and will exceed the 100 million barrel per day mark probably in 2020 or 2021, the end of the decade. And also the third point is about the kind of what's unique in this current situation is that the light tight oil, shale oil has a kind of a nature of the price responsiveness and flexibility. So the price increase will lead to the rather quick response from the shale oil, light tight oil sectors. So that is expected to work as a kind of a cap on the price levels in the medium term. And but at the same time, this low level is not only affecting the light tight oil prices, but also impacting the kind of the more difficult, the kind of the high cost projects like deep waters or the enhanced oil recoveries or the Canadian oil sands. And if that impact is rather serious, then they have longer lead time, and that would kind of lead to the kind of a classic cycle of price volatility. So we may have to see a kind of the steeper upswing depending on the impact on the non-OPEC supply, the capacities. So that's about the medium-term oil market report. I have already spent more than 40 minutes on this. So let me quickly run through this the coal market report. And there are some elements that's common, which is the Chinese market, as well as the possible kind of this low, the fossil fuel prices possibly impacting the transition to the low carbon economies. Now, coal. Of course, we saw the landmark agreement in Paris, the COP21 at the end of last year. But having said so, coal continues to be a fundamental fuel. Especially, it still generates the more than 40% of the electricity worldwide. And there, of course, we all know too well, in the second bullet, is that China is at the center. In terms of what happened since the turn of the century, from 2000 to 2014, about the 80% of the coal use increase, additional the coal demand came from China alone, and when we consider that the coal supplied more than 40% of the global primary energy in that period, so that means that about 1/3 of the primary energy growth came from single fuel in single country, China's coal. So this is impressive growth, and of course that had huge implications on the CO2 the emissions. But in 2014, we finally saw that the growth of coal in China began to show real serious signs of slowing, and it actually declined in 2014. And as far as we see, in 2015, the coal consumption in China must have decreased again. The decrease in 2015 may be more substantial in 2014. So actually, again, this is first time in the past 30 years, which is almost like a kind of the upstream spending cuts in oil and gas sectors. But so it has been over 30 years since the coal consumption declined 2 years in a row in China, and so that's a notable kind of the development, and I'll be talking about it in the later slide. And so in terms of the kind of a global the growth, after more than a decade growing over 4% per year on average, the global coal growth kind of halted in 2014 and will probably decline in 2015. So this is a very important development, and so I would like to see a bit more in detail quickly. So this is on the price, and we are at a kind of a historic low in the coal prices, and but actually when we compare this development with other commodity prices, actually for instance, this is on the kind of steam coal, but the coking coal, copper, iron ore, we see that they're all follow the kind of a similar pattern. So this shows that it'll be more to do with the kind of a macroeconomic factors rather than the kind of the coal specific the factors that has caused this the price levels. And so this could be kind of a challenge for in terms of the low carbon transition. So for instance, I think that the U.S. is the only countries who has been switching from coal to gas in the power generations in the recent years. This is because the U.S. is rather unique in terms of the very cheap gas prices. But in order to make the gas power generation competitive against this the coal price level, it would require something like a $4 per million BTU, which is only available right now in the United States. So this shows rather kind of the very challenging situation in terms of the need for reducing the carbon emissions. So so we'll see what happened in a kind of a country by country basis. So finally, we saw the Chinese growth halted. If we take a look at what happened from 2000 to 2013, we again reconfirm how robust and strong the growth in Chinese coal. And but we're not sure whether that really peaked. We need to see what will happen. But at least in 2014, it declined. So that's a kind of a substantial move, and it will be India who will kind of take the role of leading growth in coal demand because they still have the people without the access to the electricity at the scale of something like 240 million people. And so they will continue to see the expansion of the power demand, which will probably be supported by the additional coal-fired generation capacity. And we also released the Southeast Asia the energy market outlook in last October last year at the ASEAN Energy Ministers meeting, and we again forecasted a very robust growth in coal-fired generation in ASEAN region. And that'll be found. So we are seeing the kind of a building of the new coal-fired power plant capacity in various countries in the ASEAN countries, Indonesia, Vietnam, Philippines, and even Malaysia, who has a lot of gas in the domestic countries. Because so it makes sense for the Malaysians to secure gas for the exports and burn coal for their domestic power demand. So that's what's happening. And of course, we have to note that those coal power plants, the additionally built, about half of them are the inefficient subcritical coal power plants. So we have to emphasize how critically important to improve the efficiency of those the coal power plants based on the ultra, super, or supercritical technologies. And of course, progress on in the CCS would be very important to secure further growth. But we have not seen any substantial good development on that front. We talked about the the coal prices in China, but maybe one good news is that such low coal prices coming from the seriously declining demand in China. And we tried to find out the kind of which factor contributed to this the lower the coal demand in China. And first of all, on the left-hand side, so this the purple bar shows what would have happened if China continued to have the average power elasticity versus the GDP growth. And we obviously saw that we have seen in terms of, so even though the overall GDP, the economy grew, but that actually has not led to the power demand growth. Just like this, the yellow bar shows that that shows the kind of the structural changes in the Chinese economy, that the entire economic demand growth, the economic growth has not led to the power demand growth. So that was the what happened on the demand side. But also, if we see what happened, so we can easily see that the very high level of hydroelectric power capacity contributed a lot to this decreased demand of coal power generation in China. But also, we see substantial contribution from the wind and solar, as well as the nuclear and other technologies. So this is what contributed to this the lower growth in coal demand in China. And but we'll see. I mean, some people say that it actually already China's coal demand they already had the peak and will continue to decline. But we are not that sure at this moment. So in our medium-term coal market report, we kind of presented two cases. Whether one is kind of the base case scenario, in which Chinese coal demand will kind of stagnate, flatten toward the 2020. But it may have declined. So we also presented what we call the China peak case. So that's one of the areas that we will continue to monitor. With respect to the air pollution issues, this is also kind of present the kind of a major challenge that China would have to face, because in terms of the air pollution, so SOx, NOx, and the particle materials, a lot is coming not only from the power sectors, but also the industry sectors. So there are many industrial boilers they are spread around the world, which is a lot kind of in a smaller scale. And it's really hard to kind of replace them with the gas, the boilers, or equip some kind of the environmental equipment. So this will turn out to be a huge challenge. And so that's what we need to bear in mind. And in terms of what will happen to the kind of supply side exporters, we have seen that Indonesia became a kind of a number one exporter, mostly driven by the Chinese demand. But again, with the slowing down of the Chinese coal demand, Indonesia's export kind of decreased. And the Australia became the number one exporters, not only in terms of the calorific value, but also in terms of the quantity tons. So this is what happened on the kind of the exporter side. So finally, so the economic transformation of China, so slowing down as well as the rebalancing. So we will that surely affected the coal market, and we will continue to see what will happen. And India and South Asia, they will be the kind of a leader of growth. And as I presented in the previous slide, the size of India or the Southeast Asia's coal demand that's nothing comparable to what happened in China since the turn of the century. But at the same time, the incremental additional the amount of coal to be burned will be massive in terms of the need for the to achieve the climate change goals. So that's also a very important part. And if we are to achieve the goal while continuing to use the coal power generation plants, then actually that'll be there's a need for the kind of the technological solution like CCS, but we haven't seen much of the development in there. So that's basically the picture. And so low fossil fuel prices, both oil and coal. So we need to monitor what will happen in terms of the climate change, and that may the kind of seriously kind of slow down the transition. But at the same time, we're sure to say that renewable is on a very solid growth path. So the energy transition is happening. And so we have to the kind of the monitor what will happen in the coming years. So that's. I'm sorry, it's almost 1 hour. I spoke too long, so I'll be happy to receive whatever questions you may have. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
There's no need to apologize. Please have a seat. Let me pour you some water after all that work. No need to apologize. That was great, and I think we're going to have many questions. I'm going to take the moderator's prerogative of asking the first questions myself.
So let me present you.
Oh, and now that I have the answers, I know that I can write even better questions. You outlined a world. I guess it's important to remember the context of where you've just come from. You were just in Houston at an industry conference for an industry that's experiencing really sort of grim times, and you've just unloaded on that industry, well, some fairly grim news. It seems like one of the conclusions is not just that the rebalancing is still ways away, but on the other side of that rebalancing is more OPEC market power. And yet you showed the resilience of shale, starting in 2018, which I'm sure must have cheered some hearts. Putting yourself in sort of the minds of the people in the industry who were there when you watched it unrolled, what do you think their biggest surprise was? What is the biggest surprise in this report for you?
I would not like the surprises of the industries. I mean, actually I have not seen much of the kind of surprises on the receiving end of this report. So I think that this may be something close to the kind of the basic industry's expectations. But having said so, yes, you're quite right that they are in a very dire situation, and some of the industries are suffering from not only from the reduced revenues, but also kind of an increasing difficulty in terms of the access to the financing, which is happening especially in North America. So, so in that respect, they're already in a kind of grim situations, and so I think that the kind of a midterm picture that we presented must be something close to their expectations. So that's my take. Yes.
You outlined several uncertainties at the outset. One of, I think, the most interesting of which was efficiency. You pointed, I mean, you've outlined a world where the China demand miracle is not to be repeated, whether it be in oil or in coal. And you've caveated that by saying one of the things we don't know is how much efficiency is going to change expectations. But efficiency tends to be much more responsive when prices were high and prices are now low. Do you think efficiency is likely to be one of the big spoilers here, or is efficiency sort of like the carbon transition, something that might be retreating as part of low prices?
I think that's a really serious question. And of course, the efficiency in terms of the car mileage, that can be achieved by the price signals, sure. But looking at the various kind of volatile price movements, not necessarily coming from the kind of a demand side, but also from the supply side, then we cannot depend entirely upon the kind of market signals and when we try to promote the efficiency. So in that respect, and also if we take a look at the various INDCs from many countries, most of the countries have put the energy efficiency policies at the center of their policy measures. So it's not only the market signals, but I think that the government seriously need to set the right set of regulations, including the mileage, the economy standards, or the building the efficiency standards. You know, the kind of the somewhat government's the hands-on policies would actually be needed if we are seriously to implement the energy efficiency policies, and because that will be the only way to promote the efficiencies and reduce the carbon emissions during this time of low fossil fuel prices. So in that respect, I would say that the policy measures are all the more important. And this is important first in order to actually implement and deliver what's written in the collective INDCs, for sure. That's important. But also, I need to bear in mind that even though these collective INDCs are pretty good, I mean significant, if implemented, this implementation is nothing guaranteed. But if implemented, it can lead to, according to our estimates, it can lead to the 2.7 degrees Celsius world, compared with the business as usual of 3.5 or 4. So this is substantial. But having said so, these INDCs are far from achieving the 2 degrees, which requires a lot more serious the policy responses. And according to our analysis, what can actually contribute from the INDC to further down to the 2 degrees world is about half should come from the efficiency policies, and the other mostly renewables and other low carbon technologies. So in that respect, it's rather easy to say, you know, efficiency is a low-hanging fruit, but it's actually enormous amount of policy efforts that would be needed to deliver what is needed in the area of energy efficiency.
Thank you. I could go on and on and on, but I would be selfish to do so. Plus, you've bought my silence by giving me this. There are 3 customs I have been instructed to inform you of. The first is to wait for the microphone. There is a microphone, right? Okay. The second is to announce who you are. And the third, apparently, something I'm sure nobody will have trouble with, is to actually ask a question rather than say something without a question. So, Doug, I think you're the first hand I saw.
So, Doug Hengel with the German Marshall Fund. It's great to see you again, Keisuke. Keisuke and I worked together in the past representing our governments before the IEA. I had a question about statistics. I'm struck at the range people like ClearView and many others have in terms of what the current excess supply is in the oil market. It seems to be quite a range, and I'm wondering how good the statistics are that everybody is working off of, both in terms of light tight oil in the United States production and in terms of demand in many places around the globe. And so that becomes a critical factor when you're forecasting out too. So how good are the statistics that everybody is working with?
I'm really glad this is your question.
I know. That's a major challenge, and it's even more so as we are seeing the kind of a reduced, in terms of the shares, we are seeing reduced recovery by the official statistics coming from our member countries. Our share of the member countries, the IEA, OECD member countries are decreasing, and a lot more is happening outside of scope of the membership. And also, if we look at the various field data, yes, of course, there's quite a wide variety of various statistics. Yes, so I fully agree that there are some ranges. And so what we can do is we are trying to see whatever possible with limited resources to find out the best available the data possible. And also we are trying hard to enhance the cooperation with the non-member countries in terms of the various data. And but so in that respect, I can only point to the one of our analysts at the oil market team. So she is responsible for the non-OPEC supply, and she has gone massive efforts in looking at the various data in Rystad, and also she had a very extensive dialogues with the experts, not only at the IEA, and IEA is proud to have a lot of good actually industry experts as a kind of a seconded person as well. And so very kind of a detailed on the ground effort, the examining the major the oil fields the one by one. So the kind of the real personal effort would actually be the basis of this report. And I have to say that I would assume that would be the kind of best available one. Of course, it's not perfect, and I fully agree that there's a very wide range. Some bullish, some bearish, it depends. But it all comes down to the kind of the long-term experience and hard work by our individual analyst who is actually contributing to this product. And I have a fairly high level of confidence in this one. But thank you very much for your question. And we, of course, need to enhance our data capacity. That's one of the highest priority items for the IEA. Thank you. Thank you, Doug.
I think the second hand I saw was Herman.
Sadamori-san, good to see you here.
Thank you.
And thank you for an interesting presentation. My question is on the demand side. You show considerably less demand in the coming 5 years compared to the previous 5 years. Although in the case of the United States, we have seen very robust demand growth last year, in part because of a lot of mileage driven. People take advantage, and also bigger cars are being bought. Is it possible that we're actually underestimating the demand response to the low prices if, as you say, the price will remain below $80 a barrel for much of the period that you are of your forecast?
Thank you, Herman, that's again a very good question. And yes, in fact, in the World Energy Outlook, the analysis, the IEA worked on what happened in mileage economy in the U.S. and the Chinese, the light-duty vehicle fleets. And our finding is actually that we have seen a kind of continuous decline or improvement in fuel efficiency in those two countries, but we finally saw the deterioration of the efficiency in the past 2 years for the U.S. and China. So, I think you're right that we may have seen the kind of a lock-in on the inefficient the investment, because people use cars for at least 5 years or even 7 or 10 years. So that's a concern, and which may lead to the kind of increased demand. So I think that I take your point. Yes, and we have somewhat incorporated in that kind of elements in this, but at the same time, because we have seen quite a rapid growth in gasoline demand in the second and third quarter of last year. So on a kind of a year-on-year basis, we're already starting from the fairly high level in the U.S. Gasoline demand. So all in all, this 1.2 million barrel per day is a kind of our best case, the kind of a base the scenarios. But yes, we may see somewhat the lower gasoline prices may stimulate demand more. Yes, I agree with that. But on the other hand, there are other kind of downside risks in this demand outlook, which is that we're not sure about the kind of a near-term future of those emerging economies, or those countries who has depended upon their kind of resource exports due to this very low commodity cycles. So all in all, there's no definite answer to this demand outlook, but we'll see. Yeah. But thank you very much for the question. Yeah.
Right.
Hi, Bill Eichward, consultant. One of the things, we've had several presentations here at CSIS over the last couple of weeks, and one of the things that struck me in those presentations is two things. Number one, specifically when talking about unconventional energy supplies, light tight oil, shale gas, the recovery rates during the last 5 years have dramatically improved. The amount of oil from a particular well, that sort of thing. So I wanted to ask you, in terms of your analyses, looking back but also looking forward, did you draw any lessons in terms of the calculations in past years for the rapid increase in production from unconventional sources in looking forward? In other words, are you factoring in technological improvements? Are you also factoring in the cycle time of those projects to come on faster than, say, conventional or offshore projects?
I fully agree that we need to kind of incorporate those kind of technological the developments and the innovations in this area. And yeah, I would say that nobody expected this fairly robust growth of shale industries in 2010, for instance. So in that respect, we have been trying to update year by year about what will happen to this the shale oil and shale gas sector. So yes, so this is kind of the continuous effort to trying to catch up to. And even when this the price decline started in the middle of 2014, we somewhat kind of tried to estimate the kind of break-even prices. And at the time, our conclusion is that, well, probably at the kind of $80 per barrel, the U.S. shale industries should be able to continue production. So that was a kind of our initial assessment. But then we started to see that the production efficiency improved one by one. So several factors should have contributed. First of all, at the very height of more than $100 per day, there are very kind of the generous payment to the service sector people. So I heard that if you are kind of a driver in the back-end regions, you can earn a lot, like a kind of the head of the kind of a bank branch. I mean, those truck drivers are earning a huge amount of money. So they're gone. So that's one factor, and the other is the kind of a technology innovation per se. I mean, so one rig can produce a lot more oil, and also they have somewhat kind of ditched the marginal wells and started to focus real on the kind of a sweet spots. So that led to the kind of the selection of survivors and those who go bankrupt. So all in all, we have been trying to kind of catch up with the actual development, and so that's a kind of the ongoing continuous effort. Now, going forward, so based on those kind of reflections, we try to incorporate various kind of technological improvements, and so that's kind of that's the basis for the picture that I've shown. Having said so, yes, of course, this is about the kind of technologies. So we will continue to kind of monitor and be updated with respect to that. But shale oil may be a kind of a different story, but we're also not so sure whether this kind of a success of the U.S. May be kind of replicated in other areas. And also, if we take a look at the other resources like a kind of a deep sea or the other more conventional resources, one of the analyses in the World Energy Outlook is that even though we have continued to see the technological innovation in oil and gas upstream sectors, but at the same time, we are also seeing the kind of the production spots moving on to the more difficult, remote, and deeper regions. So that's, in spite of the kind of technological improvements, that would also surely make the additional the supply growth more difficult. So we are looking at a very complicated situation, but I take a point. I mean, we will need to continue to monitor the technological implications. Thank you.
This is your reward for courage. You make a courageous prediction, and you are hit with tough question after tough question. Who's got the next tough question? Well, seeing none, I'll start asking some more of my own. So you've spent a lot of time talking about the sort of the mysteries of shale, and I think in some of the questions have gotten to Bill's most recently, you know, how do you know, given how new all this is? But one of the highlights, I think, is that you pointed to two 30-year anomalies, China's 2 years of declining coal consumption, but perhaps more notably, 2 consecutive years of declining CapEx. How much uncertainty does that inject to the production upside? There's a tendency for dollars to go where value can be generated, and dollars have short memories when returns are available on the other side of the investment cycle. So it's not like anyone might be shocked out of the energy industry, but is there perhaps a longer workout scenario where CapEx keeps falling for a while?
I think it depends on of course, it's about the money at the end of the day. So it also depends on the kind of the outlook for the kind of returns. And so currently, the oil and gas industries, even though they are aware of the need for the kind of long-term investment, they have to cut down the spending in order to respond to this very current difficult situation. And so our assumption is that when the market comes to the balance, then they will see a kind of a better outlook in terms of the price developments in the future, and that would kind of lead to the kind of a better outlook for the producers. So we'll see the kind of a recovery of the investments and upstream spending in the market. And I hope we are right. And so that's the kind of picture that we presented. And but I think that also the industry people are aware. You know, I was in Houston CERAWeek, and everybody is talking about, you know, this is 6th cycle that they have gone through. I mean, those are the well-experienced oil and gas executives. They have gone through this a lot of times. So, and of course, they also point to the kind of a unique nature of this the oil price route. But at the same time, this is something that all people experienced, 5 times or 6 times. I'm not in the industry, the oil and gas industry per se, but so this is something that they should be able to overcome. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask one more question if no one else is going to interrupt me. Bill Gates, who's noted for his career as an energy analyst, recently made a comment about an energy miracle. He conveniently picked a 15-year time frame, which is outside the horizon of 2021. So there's no competition with Gates here. But there's, I guess, implied in the question is that the idea that things are changing in a way that they might not ever change back. And you emphasize that one of the agents of change could be the role of policy. So I guess I really have 2 small questions. The first is, to what extent are the outlier types of technological changes incorporated into the analysis? And other than the outlier, the second question is, how much do you look at dynamics in policy? Are there many differences in policy scenarios in your analysis, given how much policy can do to change things like efficiency?
Well, that's a very relevant question, and we are seeing kind of a drastic technological changes in terms of the drastically declining renewable costs. I mean, aside from the variability or the intermittency, the wind and solar PV are achieving almost a kind of a commercially competitive prices with the gas-fired power generation, except for the United States. In other parts where the gas prices are higher. So, together with the kind of a storage technologies, this may lead to a rather fundamentally different picture of the power markets. And so the one of our priority is what needs to be done in terms of securing the electricity, the supply security, in this the improving renewable and other low carbon technologies. So that's definitely one area that we will need to look into. So that's the first part. But as far as oil is concerned, actually we don't see any oil used in the power generation sector. It's only Saudi Arabia and Japan who is burning oil for the power generation. And Japan will reduce that due to the nuclear power coming back online. And so currently the oil is still, the gasoline and diesel, they are still the kind of a dominant fuel for supporting the transportation. And even though we are seeing the kind of the growth, strong growth in EV and natural gas vehicles in some parts of the United States or China. But in this, the outlook toward the 2021, we expect that those new vehicles like EV and natural gas vehicles, they will trim the oil transport demand by something like 0.5 million barrels per day. So, of course, it will be different in the long term. In the World Energy Outlook 450 ppm scenario, in order to achieve the trajectory toward the 450 ppm, we must have vast, substantially higher share of the EVs, probably like more than 40% of the market of the new sales of the light-duty vehicle. So in the kind of longer term, it will be different even in this transport sector. But in this transport sector, at least in this kind of the short term, medium term, near future, we will continue to see the kind of a dominant role of the liquid hydrocarbon in the transport sector. And so that's what we need to see. In terms of your question about the policy measures, yes. So there's a vast, the kind of the wide the options in terms of which policy the government would choose, and so that's basically reflected in our the scenario analysis by the World Energy Outlook, or also the ETP, Energy Technology Perspective, by the IEA, and so we. For instance, if we take a look at we are seeing the kind of a very the kind of improvement in this NPS, new policy scenario, which is a central scenario, and that was fairly improved with this country submitting INDCs and incorporating all those INDCs by quite extensive analysis. But as I said, it's far from enough to achieve the 2 degrees. So in that respect, in the Paris Agreement, there's a kind of a system of a 5-yearly review. And so it also depends upon the kind of a level of improvement in the level of ambitions in this the review cycles. So a lot depends. But the government policy measures, that would create a huge difference both in terms of enhancing energy efficiency and also how we can support in the long term the deployment of the variable renewables. So I think that would create a huge amount of difference. And also the R&D and other the measures on the other low carbon technology areas. That's also a very critical factor in shaping our energy future.
It's not self-serving at all for me to mention the importance of policy here at CSIS. Okay, well, thank you. Please join me in thanking Mr. Sadamori for his...
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here today.
Thank you. Yeah, very good, very good.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks a lot.